So there was a fellow named Ole Petter Ottersen from Oslo that came to Yale, and I was in the Department of Physiology there. And he gave a presentation, and his specialty, he's the editor of a journal called Neuroscience, one of the top neuroscientists in the world. And he was showing us brain images, and that there's this water channel at the blood-brain barrier. This is where you've got veins and capillaries in your brain that feed the neurons. And right at that barrier, there's a water channel there. And it's the same kind of water channel you have in your kidney that concentrates your blood. So, and it was even more dense than in your kidney, right? And so your brain is a better kidney than your actual kidney. So what is it doing there? Well, they knocked out the gene. And then they treated the mice with stroke, traumatic brain injury, meningitis, glioma. And the mouse, all these mice survived. They did incredibly well. You could smack them on the head, they'd live. You give them a stroke, they'd live. And it's because their brains weren't swelling. It was all based on that one little hole in the capillary where water gets through and gets into your brain. So I raised my hand and said, because I was working on this protein, by the way. That's why I went to the talk. And I was working on it for something absolutely different. I was interested in the biophysics of this protein. Just some of its quirks and quarks. It was a control protein for me. I raised my hand as, stroke, traumatic brain injury, meningitis. That's 300,000 Americans this year that will die because of these problems. So are we screening? Is anybody developing a drug? And he paused. No. Has anybody done anything? Well, there's a guy in California that's trying to do a gene knockdown. We're 20 years before we do gene therapy on the human brain. So I went and spoke to my mentor and said, let's create a new organizational infrastructure, start a company, and start looking for molecules that can block this little water pore that's at your blood-brain barrier, preventing your brain from swelling. So you can imagine troops that are out in Iraq, there's an IED, they didn't get hurt, but their head got a real big whack. Or car accidents, senior citizens that are prone to stroke, their brain's going to swell. If they can take a little drug that prevents their brain from swelling, they'll survive. So this is what I'm doing, and I urge you, not to fear school. Go to school and learn about the technologies and try and appreciate the technologies much in the same way that you'd appreciate an iPhone, because there are some really cool things. The thing is, the technologies are not about necessarily SMSing, but they're about manipulating life. And we're at that point where we can do it. So I urge you to go out there and start manipulating life and save those 2.5 billion people.
Thank you. So, and just to wrap up for a couple of quick minutes, so we got a chance to look way out into the future, and we got a chance to look at a single new entity that's being formed here in Cleveland that's working on solving an important problem. What I do in my job is help to enable whole tableaus of technologies to move forward and move into clinical use. And so I normally start these talks off with a quiz, but we don't have time, so I'm going to just cut to the good news, which is that you are in Northeast Ohio, which has the greatest community of regenerative medicine researchers between the two coasts. And that's important, and most people don't know it. We have great name researchers like Dr. Stan Gerson at university hospitals, like Dr. Arnold Kaplan at Case Western Reserve University, like Drs. George Mushler and Ria Siminoff at the Cleveland Clinic. And all of them are working together to develop new therapies in regenerative medicine. We have 115 laboratories across Northeast Ohio that are working in this area. Most of you probably didn't know that. And I think it's because sort of genetically Clevelanders are predisposed not to look at what's good about Cleveland. I don't know what that's about. But I'll tell you that both our scientific and our business resources here in this area have garnered not just international attention, but international acclaim. And the state of Ohio hasn't ignored this either. So I'm really pleased to talk about the state doing the right things for the right reasons. The state of Ohio has invested $40 million in regenerative medicine in this area over the last 5 years. And so we formed 2 consortium groups out of that. We have the Center for Stem Cells and Regenerative Medicine that's headquartered at Case, and the Clinical Tissue Engineering Center that's headquartered at the Cleveland Clinic. And between these 2 groups, we reach out to about a dozen organizations across the state of Ohio to develop new therapies utilizing adult-derived stem cells. Now, before anybody asks, the reason that we work with adult-derived stem cells is not that we have an issue with embryonic stem cells, but we know a lot about what adult-derived stem cells will do when we put them into a clinical setting. And let's face it, folks, we're in Ohio where we make stuff, right? It's great that the folks on the coasts are talking about things and discovering new technologies. We turn those into therapies here. What is it that we've made with this money? We've managed to leverage that into more than $250 million of additional investment in this area from federal and private and corporate sources. We've spun out 7 new companies to complement the anchor tenant that we have here in town with Athersys. And those companies together have managed to raise more than $100 million in additional new capital into this area. We have developed and opened the only comprehensive umbilical cord blood center collection and screening facility between New York and St. Louis. And probably most importantly, we've moved 15 new therapies into clinical trials, including therapies that reverse heart failure, that can reverse the damage caused by multiple sclerosis. And most recently, this month, in fact, we have permission to start testing a technology that's been developed by Dr. Maria Siminoff at the clinic, who many of you know as the woman who led the team that did the first face transplant here in the U.S. I think where she's really going to make an impact on the world long term is in developing a new technology that has the very real possibility of eliminating the need for long-term immunosuppression drugs in all transplant patients. Talk about changing the world. So in wrapping up, I'm so pleased that everybody's here to learn about the new medical advances with our experimental man. But you should be very proud that you're learning about it in a city and in a region that is very focused on turning medical advancements into today's medical realities. So I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you.
Today at the City Club, we are listening to a special program with David Ewing Duncan, as well as Marc Pelletier and Elizabeth Sump. We will return to our speakers in a minute for traditional City Club questions and answers. We encourage you to formulate questions now while we break for a few announcements. We welcome all of you here, especially those who are guests. We hope you will join the City Club and become active in our ongoing civic dialogue. We are pleased to welcome to our forum today students who are here as part of our City Club student program. Participation of these students is made possible by a generous contribution to the City Club from the First Energy Foundation. With us today are students from Lake Ridge Academy and John Adams High School. Will students please stand to be recognized? We are also pleased to welcome guests at tables hosted by Lakeland Community College. Wednesday, May 6th, the City Club will host a panel discussion of First Suburb Consortium Mayors, moderated by Cuyahoga County Treasurer Jim Rokakis, discussing the middle-class foreclosure crisis. Wednesday, May 27th, the City Club welcomes the Honorable Sherrod Brown, Senator from Ohio, for a forum on health care. For more information about our programs, to make reservations, and to order a tape of today's program, please call the City Club at 1-888-223-6786 or 216-621-0082, or visit our website, cityclub.org. Now we would like to return to our speakers for our traditional City Club question and answers. We welcome questions from everyone, including guests. Holding the microphone today is the City Club's Director of Development, Jessica Leary-Allen, and PRM Programs Manager, Carrie Miller. Now, first questions, please.
If Mr. Duncan would speak about the ethics of genetic compatibility. I know nowadays when 2 people decide that they love each other and are thinking about having kids, you think, oh, well, he's tall and he's smart and, she's got blonde hair or whatever. Will it actually come to some point in the future? I mean, my background, my family has heart disease. My wife's family has colorectal cancer. We've blithely gone ahead and had 2 children. You know, so I just wonder about the possibilities of, you know, people saying, well, he's a nice guy, but, you know, you can't possibly have kids.
Well, if you saw the movie Gattaca, that was the scenario. I mean, it's hard to believe that movie was 12 years ago now, but it was a future where basically no decision was made until you checked a person's genetics.